All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm not sure what time you're listening to this broadcast, but listen, I want to thank you for tuning in. I'm going to tell you, we sat here and we recorded this teaching, went to download it, and it would not download. It only downloaded the end of it. So, nevertheless, we're going to do it all over again because we know that God's going to get the glory out of it. Father, anoint me afresh, God. Open up your word to us, binding any plan and assignment of the enemy, God. But when we hear this teaching, God, we will apply it to our lives, and we will leave here better than the condition we came in. Again, not going to be long before you. We're going to start in the book of Luke. I think I'm going to do Luke 1 through 6. Just want to encourage your hearts today. Not going to be anything deep. Not trying to be profound. Not trying to be any of those things. But all I want to do is just encourage your heart. We're in a season where some of us may be discouraged. Some of us may be ready to walk away. Some of us may have given up on portions of our visions that God has given us. See, there's a sneakiness sometimes that goes on with the term we use, backsliding. Because the worst thing to do is to continue on what we would call normally business as usual, but yet know that there are portions of your vision that you have given up on because now it doesn't look like that which God spoke to you. But understand the fact that it doesn't look like what God spoke to you is just a testament of him about to do something supernatural. So be encouraged. Hold on. Don't give up. Don't give up, because that which is about to come to pass is not just going to blow your mind, but it's going to make such an impact that that which has happened won't even matter. And then you'll understand that that which has happened to you prepared you for that which you're experiencing now. So be encouraged. As I said, we're going to go to Luke chapter 10. And we're going to go, as they say, line upon line, precept upon precept. We're going to start at Luke 10, verse 1 and 2. Later, the master selected 70 and sent them ahead of him in pairs to every town and place where he intended to go. He gave them this charge. What a huge harvest. Now, he's talking about the harvest. Listen, it's souls out there that want to hear, and not just hear, but experience the master. They want to experience what they've heard concerning me. He says, a harvest out there. They're huge. Now, I'm selecting you 70. I'm sending you 2 by 2. Now, listen to what I'm saying. He said, and how few the harvest hands. So on your knees, ask the God of the harvest to send harvest hands. Harvest hands. He said, listen, I'm sending you forth to do a great work. There was a great need out here. We've recognized the need. We've identified it. I come for this very purpose. I can't do this thing on my own. He says, so I'm going to entrust in you an extension of me to go out into the, as it said for us, hedges and highways, that you can compel others to come, but not just compel them, but you're going to also be able to demonstrate that which you've seen me demonstrate. I'm going to live inside of you and manifest myself through you. He said, because there's a harvest. He said, but it is few that are really ready to labor. So he's letting them know this thing is not easy. It's not going to be easy. He's making them face a reality. Always tells us count the cost before we do anything, whether it's in the business world, our personal life, and especially in ministry. We need to count the cost that goes along with it, whether it's a natural cost of your time, your energy, your life, whether it's a spiritual cost, whether it's an emotional cost, whether it's a financial cost. We need to count all of that. He said, take all of this into consideration before you get excited about the charge that I've given you, before you get excited about what I called you to do. I want you excited about it. But before you do that, I want you to understand that what you are about to embark on is not going to be easy. You're going to get out there and you're going to realize it's so much to be done. But so many people that could do it, that have been equipped to do it, but are not willing to go through the process to be able to do it effectively. So he said, I got y'all here today, so I want to see what y'all going to do with that which I'm about to impart in your life. Now listen, here we go. So he tells them, get on your knees, seek the Father. Must be a strong prayer life. And the reality is, when we go through, especially those that are workers in the vineyard, many times the first thing that's hit, the first two things, is our prayer life and our study life. We cannot go out and display the love and power of God if we're disconnected from the very thing that we need to remind us and infuse us and charge us again with that which we are attempting to empower people with. So our prayer life gets attacked and our study life gets attacked. And many times we allow it because we get frustrated, we get angry, we're preaching a gospel, we're teaching a gospel that many do not seem to desire to hear. But the answer to that today would be, are we doing the specific assignment that God called us to? I challenge us there. Are we doing it, or are we taking what God has entrusted in us, getting a thought in our mind for the people that we want it for, and taking what God has given us and throwing it to the people that we want it for? Or have we sat down and said, God, show me the specific people that you've assigned me to, so that this labor that I'm doing is not done amiss or in vain. And then I'm tired, I'm drained, because I feel like, God, I'm doing this for no reason. God, I'm just tired, or I'm just trying to do your will. Is that really the case? And I'm asking, and I'm not asking this in an arrogant manner. I'm asking because this is a situation I had to face for myself. Just a week ago, God told me, he said, you know what your problem is? And we don't want to hear that, because we want to hear that. Oh, thou art such a great servant. Thou hast been faithful over this, and you've been faithful over that. And you are the one. You're the one I've elected. You're the one I've chosen. You are my special one. And that's true. He's elected. He's chosen. We're special in his eyes, as are others. But we hit seasons where we get so engrafted in what we're going through and engrafted in ourselves sometimes that we miss the mark. And I don't care how, deep we get in God, or how profound we get in God, or how big we get in other people's eyes. Never think that you can be so great that you can't miss God. Because it's sometimes in those greatest times that we have to be pulled back and reminded of the foundational things in our lives. And he said, Cliff. I said, He said, Cliff. I said, nah. He said, Cliff, I know you think that you're doing a great thing. And you are. You're doing a great thing. And there's some people that are like, oh my God, I praise him. Oh, I'm doing a great thing. He said, but you're not doing what I assigned you to do. I said, well, Lord, what you mean by I'm not doing what I assigned you to do? And he took me back to the foundation of the message and the ministry that he had given unto me. And he said, that is no longer the root of the message that you preach. Now, I do want to side note, I was not preaching anything contrary to the word of God, but I had become so engrafted in other things that I forgot the foundation of that which he had called me to do. So I don't want nobody going out here and somebody, he out there preaching anything now. No, baby. But if God called you a specific assignment, my specific assignment, the foundation of it begins with covenant relationships of all levels. All levels. If my message is no longer infused with that foundation, I find myself not being as influenced or influential with the message that I'm preaching anymore, because that has no longer my foundation. So I had to come back to Luke 10, where he commissioned me to send me out. And I had to remember when I was down on my knees what he told me while I was on my knees, because I become distracted when I got up off my knees by what I saw. And it caused me to forget what he showed me on my knees. A preacher in this area, he has a radio station. One of the sayings I love about, they play it all the time. He said, you should never doubt in the dark what God showed you in the light. And that's true and profound, because sometimes we go through situations and we start to forget that which God said. So I want to encourage you, what he told you on your knees, after you stand up, start to go forth, trials and situations start to come, everyday life situations start to come. That does not change what he said. You can still stand on that. The same thing that God spoke to you concerning you in your prayer closet is the same thing that applies to you when you come out of that sacredness of the prayer closet and you step into a real world, when now you're faced with challenges and situations that contradict everything that he told you. But you got to take that same fervor that you had in that prayer closet when he spoke it to you. Because in that prayer closet, y'all, when we get in our prayer closets, come hell or come high water, when God speaks something, we know he's going to bring it to pass. When God establishes something in us, there's a charge in our spirit. There's a leaping in our inner man that says, not only can I do this, but God is going to do this through me. And it's going to impact this nation, this world, my town, my state, whatever dimension he has called you to. It's going to impact in ways like we have never thought it would impact before. So what we have to focus on is we just have to believe God past our last trial, past our last disappointment, past the last person walking away from us, past the last thing that does not look like what he said. I'm telling you now, he's taking us back to where he first called us. Sometimes we got to revert back to that before we can go forth. Sometimes we got to go back to where he first called us. Because how many remember when he first called us? Man, we were scared, nervous, excited, but ready to go forth. We were just crazy. We were radical. We believed God past anything. We did not know a lot of stuff. Theologically, we were not that deep. Well, maybe you were. It wasn't. When he called me, I was a hot mess. Nobody want nothing to do with me. But he was like, Cliff, I put a word in your spirit. I put me inside of you to come forth and impact people. And I thought to myself, Lord, you crazy. Do you know who I am? And he said, do I know who you are? I created you. Not you. And I had to begin to see who he really had called me to be. But he wants to take us back to there because we were so innocent in the sense of not knowing what we were getting into. Now we get distracted by what we see, by what people say, by our perception, and by our measurement of other people's ministries. Never measure your ministry against anybody else. Never. I don't care if it took them a year and a half to pastor a mega church. That does not mean, number one, doesn't mean God is in it. Number two, it does not mean that that's the assignment that he has for you. Never measure the success of somebody else's ministry on what you've perceived as, or perceived success versus your perceived failure. Never. You cannot measure what God designed you to do against your biggest mentor or your biggest idol. Understand that you have an individual walk that God has taken you through, and it is measured upon the time that God has designed for you, with also thrown in at the times that we hinder the seasons that God has for us. And you cannot measure it based upon your best friend, your boo, or anybody else. You have got to measure against what God has told you, instructed you, and called you to do. Now here's what he tells them next. We're down at verse 3. He said, listen, and again, I'm reading from the Message Bible. He said, on your way. He said, now it's time to go forth. It ain't no more excuses. It's no more questions, because I've given you ample time to address any questions or reservations you have. He said, now it's time to get to work. He said, it's time to work now. It's no time to look back right now, because I've commissioned you. I've called you. You said you thought about it. You said you knew that you were called to go forth. You said all this stuff. Now, okay, it's time to go forth. He said, on your way, but be careful. This is a hazardous work. You're like lambs in a wolf pack. Man, this is the part that sometimes made us question it, that makes us question it now. But when he told us, we believed him so much, it ain't even matter. Because we said, God, we don't care who come up against us. You are greater inside of us than anything that could come against. We was on fire. We was fervent. We lacked the knowledge of experience that is now standing and hindering some of our process. We lacked it because all we knew was God took us, cleaned us up, showed us who we were against what everybody said, what everybody thought, what we said, what we thought. He wrapped us inside of him and said, now I'm sending you forth. And we just believed him. We didn't care about no wolves. Who? God has empowered me. He's given me authority to speak on his behalf. He's given me authority to cast out demons. He's given me authority to heal the sick. He's given me authority to make a change and impact around this nation that has never been seen before. We need to go back to that. Now, I know some of us may say, honey, you ain't talking to me, because I'm apostle so-and-so, I'm prophet so-and-so, I'm elder so-and-so, I'm evangelist so-and-so. I don't care what title we walk in. We all face seasons where, like Elijah, we flee to a cave because we face a battle that we attempt to run from, that we need to face head on, because it's not as strong as we think it is, but we end up in a cave hiding. And that's not a bad thing, because while Elijah was in the cave, God preserved him. He heard from God like he never heard from God before. He was sent on his greatest assignment next. But we have to face a reality that there are some things that we are, and I don't know where I'm going with this, but there are some things that we're running from that we need to face head on. We need to face it head on. That's why we got to go back. In order to go forth, we got to go back to the foundational things. That's why he has us back. And this is reminding us when he first called us. It's reminding us, you're stronger than what you think. You can endure this thing. This will not take you out. God's going to get the glory out of this. And when you come out this time, you're not coming out alone, but you're coming out with you're coming out with a testimony that's going to bring others with you. And they'll be able to go back and get others with them. And this will be a season where the greatest harvest will be reaped for his kingdom. See, the church is under attack. The church as we know it is under attack. Face many challenges. We got church on the internet. Makes it more accessible and easier to stay home. We got so much stuff going on in the church. So many scandals. Some true, some not true. But it's caused a hit with the church. But now it's time for the kingdom to stand and take its rightful place and walk in the authority that God has given them and say, listen, everybody is not like what you perceive. Now I need you to come on back. But this time when you come back, you're going to have a real experience with God. Because some people were coming to church because they were looking for something. But to be real, some people hadn't experienced God enough to give them that which they were looking for. But God, when he called you, You develop a relationship with him, and it's still in the process of developing a relationship with him that completely transformed, didn't just change, transformed your life. And because of that transformation, when you open up your mouth and speak, lives are changed. When you open up your mouth to pray, results happen. When you preach and teach God's word, deliverance breaks out, healing breaks out, miracles begin to break out. Why? Because you had an intimate encounter with God that changed your life. You're not living off of my mom's testimony. You're not living off of auntie's testimony, not living off your pastor's testimony, but you had an intimate, personal encounter with God that transformed and changed your life. Transformed you. You don't look the same. You don't talk the same. You don't walk the same. You're like nobody else. There's a uniqueness about you. You're not just weird in the sense of some people have taken this, oh, prophets are unique and strange. And they've developed a persona or personality that's eccentric, that has nothing to do with the uniqueness and identity of the prophetic call or prophetic assignment. They have. It was developed out of rebellion. See, I'm in the midst of writing this book, and God is blessing me with it. But one of the things that He gave me was that many people are living off of an infectious individuality. I can say that again. Infectious individuality. There are people in our lives that make great influence upon our lives. Influence versus an infection is different. You can make an influence on my life in that every time I go to do something, I'll think about you and the impact you made on my life, and it'll help assist with me making my own decisions. But when it has become infectious, I'm not able to make my own decisions because all I hear when I go to make a decision is you. Because now I can't even hear God for myself. I just hear you. And some people say, well, that's good because they've been such a positive influence. That is good to a certain degree. But that's not always good. Because you end up lying and not being honest, number one, about who you are. And number two, about the decisions you made. Because they're no longer your decisions. And somebody say, well, they shouldn't be your decisions. You should be led by God. Yes. Amen. So true. But if your voice is louder than God's voice in my life, that's not necessarily a good thing. Whether you're telling me good versus evil, it does not matter. If now I've allowed you to take that throne as God to me, that relationship is not going to end good. My life will not be fulfilled. They'll call me a mini you. A mini you. Not oh, that's Cliff. No, honey, that's so-and-so's little boy. Now, there's a positive side to that because some people so connected to the leaders, but first to God, that people start to call them that. I'm not talking in that sense. I'm talking in a sense where God is stirring some things in your spirit. He's showing you who you are, and you're afraid of being who you are because of what everybody might think, everybody might say. It's not going to be received. I'm talking from that sense. So we got this infectious individuality that has to be dealt with in ministry, because in ministry you'll hit seasons where you'll have to make crucial decisions for the ministry God has placed in your life. And if you make infectious decisions, your ministry is going to suffer, and it'll never go to the level God called it to go to, because now your ministry looks like somebody else's. Never try to make your ministry look like somebody else's. Seek God for the identity of the ministry that He's placed in your life. Now, I grew up under a spiritual father. Some of my teachings, Some of my style, my delivery will remind you of that person. But my ministry does not look like his, and he wouldn't want it to look like his. He'd be the first one to tell you, do you. Do who God created you to do. So as God is bringing us back, let us search deep and say, God, am I being who you called me to be? Really, am I God? Or have I watched so many people that subconsciously I've adored them to the point that now I've become many thems? I'm just a many them, Lord. Have I allowed them to get in my way of my connection with you? Another part of my book. Isaiah, I think it's Isaiah 62. Isaiah said, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord. Now, to some they might say, I'm not trying to be deep and profound and everything, but I started to question God. Why did Uzziah have to die? Now, I know some people will say, well, was it Isaiah's appointed time to come forth as a prophet? Da-da-da-da-da. I understand all of that. But God began to deal with me as well. There are some kingdoms that we've established inside of us. Kingdoms of influence. Going back to that infectious individuality. There are people that have a louder voice in your life than God. There are people that when you think of God, you look to. Not a bad thing, not a bad thing. But when God goes to introduce himself to you individually, but yet he can't step past that throne because you can't see him past that person, now that becomes a problem. So every time he goes to reveal himself to you, and then we know God is all powerful. If he wanted to do it, he could do it. But he's a gentleman. He's not going to do it. He's not going to fight with the God that sits on your throne versus who he is in your life. He's not going to do it. But he said, the year King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord. So in this season, I want us to seek God concerning kingdoms and kings, whether family, friends, loved ones, booze, people we in a relationship that don't know we're in a relationship with them, people that are in a relationship with us that don't know they're in a relationship with us. Whatever your Uzziah is, hurt, pain, rejection, fear, apprehension, struggling with self-identity, whatever your Uzziah is, this is the gear that he must be dethroned so that you can begin to see God the way that God intended for you to see him. Now, I'm all over the place. I'm all over. Oh, God, I thank you. I'm all over the place. But the focal point in this is many of us are discouraged in this season. We've sought God. God, what do I got to do? God, it don't seem like this is working. It don't seem like that's working. He said, hold on. Hold on, hold on, hold on. But there are some things that have we put before God that now God's voice isn't as loud as it used to be back when we had our Luke 10 experience. It's not as loud. God could whisper to us in that season and his voice be so demonstrative that we move just like that. Now God whispers and we don't hear. He speaks authoritative and we don't move. Because now his whisper is muted and his authoritative voice sounds like a whisper, but we can't hear it because our Uzziah keeps screaming at us that it's not our time, that we miss God. You're not the one that can do that. Think about all the mistakes that you made, not just over your life, over the years of your life, but yesterday, today, right before you listen to this teaching. Think about the mistakes you made. Think about who you are. Think about your struggles. Think about your family. Think about your surroundings. You ain't all that great. And now you being prideful and you being arrogant because you said God called you to do. He hasn't called you to do nothing great. Those are the things that's got to be dethroned. They got to be dethroned, and we got to go back to where we were first introduced to the voice of God, to the cry that we had in our spirit. God, I want you and nothing else. God, I'm focused on you. God, I'll go forth and do what you call me to do. God, I'll step out there. Some of us, our faith has been shaken due to circumstances that had nothing to do with what God called us to do. We brought those circumstances and experiences into our ministry, and it's infected the very ministry that God has called us to. And it's become such an infectious cancer and virus that is spread throughout our entire life. It's spread throughout it has affected everything. But today we're going to grab hold of it. We're going to pull down the kingdom that we've allowed. That's the reality. We got to take responsibility for it. We've allowed this. We've allowed this. We've allowed these kingdoms to take authority in our lives that it was never meant for them to take. So I challenge us today. Step one, get back to consistent prayer. Get back to consistent prayer. Get in your word, not just reading it every now and then. I'm talking to all of us. Not just reading it every now and then, not just reading it to read it, but God revealed to me, as Apostle Abbott says, kingdom strategies and principles to apply to my life that will change my life, transform me, God, through your word. When I don't feel like reading, I got to get up and read. God, I'm going to study your word. I'm going to fast. I'm going to lay my plate down, God. I'm going to give up my TV. I'm going to give up my cell phone. God, I'm going to hear your voice. Nobody's voice will be louder than your voice in my life anymore, God. We got to get back to it. We got to get back to it where we fervently and earnestly sought him. We didn't seek nobody else. Nobody else's approval mattered. It was just him and us. We got to get back to it. We got to get back to it. We got to get back to where we trusted him. Regardless of what it looked like, regardless of what it seemed like, we trusted him, we trusted him, we trusted him. Right now, I pray for everyone on this phone, everyone listening to this teaching. Thought we was on the conference call. But I pray for their lives, God, right now. I pray for their ministry. But I pray first for their lives. I bind the very plan and assignment of the enemy, God. The assaults that have been sent against their minds, against their will, in their emotions, God. Lord, I loose an emotional balance, God. Every soul tie, every covenant made out of ignorance, God. Every covenant, God, with sin. Every covenant with death, every covenant with hell in the grave, God, I destroy it right now in the name of Jesus, God. I snip every unbiblical cord, God, that keeps them connected to a false source, God. It's caused them to disconnect from you, God, and they become entangled once again, God, with the yokes of bondage, God, the oppressive bondage against their hearts, God, against their minds, God. Renew minds, God. I command shackles to be broken, God. I command right now scales and blinders to be removed off of people's eyes and ears, God. I loose the spirit of truth now, God, in the midst of their circumstances, in the midst of their situation, God, in the midst of their lives, God. I release it now. In Jesus' name, transform them, God. Do it for your glory, Lord. Every leech and every sapsucker, I break, God, their chains. I break their pull. I break the authority that has been given in the midst of their lives, God. God, this be a season, God, a prophetic assignment and a prophetic alignment in their lives, God, that they will not connect to anyone, not according to your will, God. But, God, every connection that desires to come, you will reveal the purpose of that connection, God. And if it's not according to your will, they will not connect. Do it right now. Break family line curses. Go back to childhood, God. The cryings of pain, molestations, rapes, emotionally and physically. God, right now, heal like only you can heal. God, engulf them in your arms, God. Let tonight be a night where they experience sleep and rest in you like they've never experienced it before, God. Do it right now. Do it right now. I destroy the spirit, God. Suicide, spiritually and naturally. And I command them to live to declare the word of the Lord, the works of the Lord. You shall live, you shall not die. Hallelujah, we praise you. We give you glory, God. Have thine own way, God. Have your way, God. I speak to the spirit man and I command him to come alive. Now come alive, a hunger for your word, a fervor for your word. Unlock your mysteries like never before, God. Let greater wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and revelation knowledge of your word rest heavy upon their hearts, God, now. A deeper communion with you, God. Command every weight to be lifted, every weight to be less. Stir up, God, every gift that goes along with the call and the assignment that's lying dormant now. Stir it up. Bless businesses, God, as we prioritize. Bless our businesses, God. Send in those that will pour into our lives spiritually, naturally, financially, God. Those that are in need of miracles, God. Begin to do it, God. Give them strategies of prosperity. I bind poor stewardship now. Not just from money, but poor stewardship of time, of emotions, of feelings, of relationships. All of those, God, I bind it now. And I praise you for it being done, God. I give you glory for it now. And I thank you. And listen, thank you for tuning in. My plan was to go down to verse 6. We'll see what God says on the next broadcast. But I want you to know, God has not forgot what he said concerning you. So don't you forget what God has said concerning you. I don't care how hard it gets. I don't care what people say. I don't care what it looks like. Understand that there is only one person, and it's not even a person in the sense of us, but there is one word that you can always count on, and that's the word of God. So if God spoke it to you, understand that he's going to bring it to pass. He's going to bring it to pass. Be encouraged. I pray this teaching blessed you. If it's blessed you, please take the time. Go by my Facebook page, on my wall, or inbox me. Let me know it was a blessing to you. Let me know that this broadcast is blessing you. If not on Facebook, email me, bishopcmpettyjohn@outlook.com. Let me know. Send me your prayer requests. Send me any questions you have that you may want addressed on the broadcast. And we'll address them as the Spirit of the Lord leads me. Keep me lifted in your prayers as I pray for you. And I'll see you the next time. God bless.
Unstoppable, that's what you are. unstoppable, that's what you are.